Morning, everybody. We're just getting settled in here. If you can just give us 1 or 2 minutes. Everybody online, welcome to see you all. 13 of you so far. Great. We'll be starting here in about 2 minutes. Thank you. All right. I think we're probably ready to get going. All right, guys, if you guys can maybe take your seats, that'd be great. We got a lot of people here online waiting. All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the first Ag Business Forum of 2023. Hello to everybody online and everybody here. Thank you for joining us. Let me just take a moment to introduce myself. I recognize pretty much everyone here, but a lot of people online might not know me. My name is Todd Underwood. I am the Strategic Marketing Manager for SIFT. Thank you for coming today. I just want to let you know we will be having questions, but we'd like you online and in person to hold them till the end. That way, both the virtual audience and the in-person audience can hear the questions. So if you have questions, we really look forward to them, but if you could hold those to the end. Just wanted to say a few things about SIFT for anybody new who might be joining us online. Ohio MEP is part of a nationwide public-private partnerships with centers in all 50 states and Puerto Rico, which is dedicated to serving small and medium-sized manufacturers. SIFT is one of 6 center partners in the state of Ohio. Our vision is to be a partner in solutions and innovation for food manufacturing and agribusiness. We work to achieve this vision through a unique blend of direct services, a membership consortium made up of leading companies in the food space, and a vast network of resources and other partnerships. Our goal is to increase competitiveness and growth in Northwest Ohio and throughout the state. This Agribusiness Forum helps with that mission by highlighting trends, new innovations, and more once a month when we meet. Today, we are being, I'm sorry, did not print out. We are being, what's your last name? I'm sorry. Allstetter. I'm sorry it was here, but Phil, we're joined by Phil Allstetter of Sunrise Corporation. He's been there for nearly 25 years, working with several legacy cooperatives. He started in the late 1990s with Auglaize-Provico Cooperative in Kettlersville, Ohio. His first responsibility right out of Wilmington College was to call on potential customers who currently did no business with Auglaize-Provico. In 2006, he was promoted to plant manager from the Botkins Ohio fertilizer plant, which stores over 40,000 tons of dry fertilizer and 20,000 tons of liquid fertilizer. After the merger in 2007 to form Advanced Agri Solutions, Phil was named crop nutrient manager for Advanced Agri Solutions. In 2010, when Advanced Agri Solutions merged with Southwest Landmark Cooperative to form Trupointe Co-op, Phil continued as the crop nutrient manager, now responsible not only for Botkins Ohio terminal, but the South Charleston Fertilizer facility as well, for the first time having responsibilities for liquid fertilizer storage space in Cincinnati, Ohio. After the Sunrise merger in 2017, Phil continued his responsibilities as CM manager, which in fiscal year 2022 was a business valued at nearly $275 million, handling nearly 350,000 tons of fertilizer across the state of Ohio. So I'd like to take this chance to welcome Phil. Thanks for coming up. Great. Let me switch this over. There you go. Sorry. And there you. Oh, all right. Thanks for having me out today. I appreciate the opportunity. You heard some of my comments. I am very involved in the fertilizer business here within the state of Ohio. So when Rebecca called me and said, "Hey, could you help me out?" I said, "This is a great opportunity, right? I mean, I'm over 2 hours from home, which will make me an expert today. I'm also speaking on my opinion of things, which again, I'm an expert on that topic as well. So I feel real good with what we're going to talk about. A little bit about me first, just so you know who you're talking to. Super busy. My wife and I have 4 kids. We are huge Lakers. We live near Bell Fountain, Ohio. And the picture in the middle was senior night the other night. My oldest daughter down here in the lower right-hand corner, as we're looking at the screen, very good basketball player at Indian Lake. We're going to probably be playing our last game tonight in tournaments, but we're looking forward to it. We have cow-calf as well, so very involved in agriculture outside of fertilizer. Apologize. Okay. Wrong button. I think when we switched over to your deck, it stopped sharing. Okay. My apologies. That's why I have the. There we go. So we have the backup computer so we can see. And sure that's not on there. There you go. Thank you. So tonight we're playing probably our last basketball game as a senior in school. We also have cow-calf operation. My parents and I have about 70 mama cows, so we're involved in agriculture, not only from working at Sunrise Co-op. We have a couple hundred acres of row crops. We have about 70 mama cows. Notice a very uniqueness in that picture. We got black calves on white cows. You're saying, how does that happen? Most of what our work is embryo work for other herds. So we'll take embryos from somebody else with really good genetics, put them on our cows. We will raise the calf for them and then sell the calf back to them in fall. My kids have different levels in the lower corner here. My daughter with goats. I don't know much about pygmy goats and boer goats, but we're getting educated really fast. As she has decided she wants to work with that. My youngest daughter is into rabbits a little bit, so we're raising some rabbits as well. It's just a big circus. Okay, if you want to come follow me around for a day, it's super busy. It is a big time circus. So today we're here to talk about basically 3 things. If I got my, we already saw this part. I am the crop nutrient manager at Sunrise Co-op. Okay, we have facilities across the state of Ohio. Almost all of our business is within the state of Ohio. We do a little bit on the fringes as far as in Kentucky or over in Indiana, but we're basically an Ohio-based company. Our headquarters is in Fremont, so not really that far from here. I sit in Botkins, Ohio. So get on I-75, go south about 2 hours, hour and a half. I sit in our fertilizer plant in Botkins, Ohio, which is quite frankly where I've grown up. I'm a little bit of an anomaly, not only within the co-op system, but just in general. I've been able to continue to survive mergers, which is pretty hard to do sometimes. I've gotten some new CEOs. I've been able to continue to survive that. So that's what it goes, how it goes. So what do I do? I manage all of our crop nutrient vendor relations. So if somebody wants to come sell us fertilizer, you're probably going to have to get past me first. I make all of our purchases. So I decide when we're going to take positions, when we're not going to take positions, how much risk are we willing to take? We'll talk on risk a couple different times today. That's really got this whole thing started. Rebecca reached out to me and says, Phil, fertilizer prices seem awfully high. What is that doing to farmer budgets for next year? Can you give us some thoughts? Well, the fertilizer market has totally fallen apart since she saw me in December, so I've had to change the presentation a little. I develop creative ways to analyze markets and drive business. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. We actually have a lot of our growers who will be buying the fertilizer, selling their grain to us at the same time. We're already encouraging folks to start buying inputs for 24. So the 23 crop's not even in the bag or out of the bag yet and in the ground. We're wanting them to buy some 24 inputs. We'll talk on that. I manage all inbound logistics and supporting relationships. So you want to talk about Mississippi River Freight. You want to talk about why the railroads are horrible in their service right now. I can discuss those topics. We're not going to today, but if you have questions, I'd be more than to take them. And the most important thing I do is worry about our position. Okay. Any of you have ever traded grain, you're always worried about your position. Fertilizer is the same way.
What's our DPR, daily position report? How much of what we own is not sold? Okay. Talked to a colleague when these declining fertilizer markets. Talked to a colleague recently and said, I just got done talking with the CEO. And they were discussing their length that they had, the fact that the ammonia price had come down significantly, and how much of a hit that was going to be to the bottom line. So you have to know, in my role, what your position is. You know, how many tons are unsold. We do a position twice a month, meaning today and the middle of the month and the end of the month we do a position. So I must have pushed the wrong button again. What did I push wrong here? I'm going to focus in 3 areas today. I don't know what I did. Okay, I'm going to focus my discussion in 3 areas today. First, around these crazy fertilizer prices, right? I'm going to show you some charts. I'm going to show you some very high peaks, and now on the backside of this thing in the last month, how fast the price has fallen apart. Okay, and maybe some implication of what that means to a grower in Ohio, right? How much he paid in the fall versus what is today. Second thing we're going to talk about is how farmers should evaluate fertilizer purchases. Again, this is a program I developed. This is how I focus things at Sunrise. I'm in Northwest Ohio, right? If I don't at least make a few comments on H2 Ohio, everybody will ask me about it anyway. So we are very involved in H2 Ohio at Sunrise. I'll share a little bit about what we're doing there. It kind of drives what we do to a degree, just for information. The last thing I'll put out there is if there's a question you have for me, if we're getting some point, I know you can put your question in online. If you're in the group here, you want to just ask me, I'll take the questions. We can discuss whatever else is on your mind. If you have a specific thing as it relates to fertilizer or something about Sunrise, just ask it out to me. As we move forward today, I'm presenting to you all today with some of these thoughts. Sunrise is in the middle of what we call FFA week or month, right? So that's a big deal for us. We do a lot of our recruiting, trying to get high school seniors to come straight to work for us out of high school. We focus on the FFA program. So Tuesday, you'll have to work with me here. I was presenting to 160 FFA seniors and juniors, which takes a very different style of presentation than what I'm working with here today. So to get these kids to interact, we're trying to get them hired to join us before they go somewhere else. So we got quite a bit going on at Sunrise today. So let's first talk about fertilizer markets. And I really like this slide. And if you ask me a question about any one of these smaller green dots, it is having a major impact on what caused fertilizer prices to go high, right? There's folks that have said, oh, we need a government regulation into price fixing, or we need a government investigation to this or into that. You know, there's a whole lot of stuff that's went on. And I'm going to point a couple of these out in the next couple of slides. I'll talk to them specifically, but we can talk to any one of these things by our psychology. You know, as the prices have now started to fall, people don't want to do anything. All these things have greatly impacted what drove the fertilizer market so high. Okay. Cost of natural gas. That's not one thing I'm going to talk on. Natural gas cost is a huge issue. Planted acreage. It's one of the things I'm watching the most right now is all of a sudden we've had these groups saying, hey, we might plant 94 million acres of corn in the US. I'm telling you, if we plant 94 million acres of corn this year, we do not have the nitrogen in place to do that. Okay? That is a big, big number. So any number of these things, I'm going to talk specifically to 2 or 3 of them. First of all, I want to set the stage. Fertilizer is very much a global market. Okay. People think we use all these fertilizer in the US, and we do. But what I really want you to catch out of this slide is this 90% number. If you look across the globe and the amount of fertilizer that's used across the globe, 90% of nutrients are used outside of the US. 10% of global nutrients are used inside of the US. Okay. For the most part, the US has very productive soils. You know, there's much lower productivity in other parts of the world. They need a lot greater amounts of fertilizer. But 90% of global nutrients are used outside of the US. What this chart shows, it's very complicated. Basically, it just shows what are some major trade flows of where fertilizer goes. We'll just look at the US because most of us know this geography the best. You see these big arrows coming down out of Canada. The only one I'm really going to focus on is that big pink arrow in the middle, and that's basically potash, right? Most of the potash that we apply here in northern Ohio and Ohio in general actually is mined in Saskatchewan and comes here with us via rail. First thing I want to do is set the stage is just because we're thinking stuff here in the US, because we look at farmer profitability here in the US, fertilizer is very much a globally traded product, okay? We watch what the price of urea and ammonia and natural gas are in Europe or in the Arab Gulf is a huge impact of what the price is here. Okay. Big deal on global usage. So I talk about things that other countries that can do that greatly impact our price of fertilizer here. Okay. Most of you would not follow this, but if you did, China has basically said we don't want to export fertilizer out of our country at this time. Okay, they keep extending how long they want to do it. There's all kinds of information you could Google and find it. But why this is important is China produces about 25% of the global phosphates that are exported. Okay, when they say, hey, we're not going to export phosphate out of China anymore, that really interrupts the trade flows, right? That interrupts all those arrows you saw on the previous slide, where it's coming from. We actually saw phosphate show up in the US that came out of Australia in the last year. There's no reason for a boat to float that long to bring phosphates to the US. That has happened because China says we want to keep those nutrients here, right? They're keeping the nutrients there. They want to make them very much available to their own farmers, trying to increase their productivity. All of us have seen these stories about how China wants to increase what they're growing domestically. They're keeping it. Same way with urea. 10% of global urea exports come out of China. If they choose not to export, okay, it'll greatly impact how product flows around. So one little data point I'll share with you. In China, they tell me when they go to export urea, right, we do everything in bulk here, right? We do it in 1,500-ton boats, or we do it in rail cars, or we do it in some of those. In China, if they're choosing to export, they actually have to cut a 50-kilo bag, put it onto a belt. Every one of those bags gets cut open. It's bagged in urea, and the urea is bagged in China. Then it's put on a boat and comes to the U.S. So all that urea, even if it comes as a 50,000-ton boat, was all bagged at one point in time before it comes here. Big deal. So China's choosing to curb exports is a very key factor in what has pushed the fertilizer price high. Another thing we'll talk about is weather. Okay, we can talk about lots of different things from weather. We could go back to Texas and talk about when Texas was in trouble and they basically froze themselves out there 2 years ago. But we'll talk about Hurricane Ida, right? This happened a year ago. Hurricane Ida came in through the Gulf, right? The Gulf is big time known for oil production and refining in the U.S. The Gulf is also where the largest nitrogen plant in the U.S. is at Donaldsonville. Okay, this is the biggest nitrogen plant. Brings most of our UAN that we use here in Ohio, comes up the Mississippi out of Donaldsonville. Didn't really tear the plant up. They got away from it. But the bottom line is it destroyed electricity around there. Donaldsonville was down for an extended period of time because they couldn't get electric to their plant. Okay. Just an example of how a weather event had a huge impact on getting fertilizer prices to where they're at right now. Okay. The plant wasn't damaged, but the damage was big time to the infrastructure around it. Sanctions. Right? We go back to what our trading was with China example. Here's Belarus. Okay. This is right over there by the Ukraine. How those folks are acting over there isn't really something we're all proud of right now. Now it's hard for the potash to get out of there because they can't export it through Lithuania and other countries around. Okay. So 21% of the potash comes out of Belarus. Okay. The rest of the world, 79%. If we can't get that potash out, it made a huge impact on potash values. It particularly about a year ago when Russia first invaded the Ukraine, everyone puts these sanctions out there. They don't want to support them. Potash is still moving around a little bit, but this drove potash prices higher at the time. Okay, will we really be able to move the product around? So I'm going to show you some charts throughout the day, and I really am just trying to show you what volatility has happened in potash in this period of time. Okay, so these are charts we build them ourselves. They'll all look virtually the same. This is a 5-year chart. If you look at the top, this is a retail potash price at sunrise. Okay, the dotted line in the middle shows you that's the average price for the last 5 years. Okay, average price for the last 5 years. You'll notice from 2018 through about 2020. Okay. Was all the pandemic stuff that's happened right into here. Okay, extremely low unvolatile price. That's what has happened since 2021 through now. Potash just went crazy, literally setting new highs. We get out here since we came in through the fall season, especially since we came into the new year, potash prices have fallen off tremendously. Okay, anybody who bought their potash in a traditional fashion last year in July or August. Many retailers traditionally buy their fertilizer in July and August that they need for at least the fall season, sometimes well to the spring season. I have a counterpart who they bought 80% of their potash needs in August. Today, the value of potash from August to today is $275 less. Major negative impact on a retailer who took that position. Okay, you'll see this across the board. This volatility is tremendous in how it's affected people. Urea. Okay, I mentioned urea earlier coming out of China. Urea is a big user for us. I often say when you're looking at these charts, what goes straight up will come straight down. Okay, happens almost every time. Again, you can see the middle line somewhere around 530. Urea is probably lower than this even today from when this chart was built at the end of January. Dropped off tremendously. To be real interesting though, I want to show you, my data is almost 20 years old now. I've been in this job for about 25 years. I've been keeping track of it for almost 20 years. You'll notice these peaks through time. We had one back in 2012, one back around 2008. We have one of these peaks right now. I mentioned what goes straight up comes straight down. Okay. We talk about farmer profitability. Talk about what are they looking at for 23. Anybody who bought their urea at the peak versus where it's at today is at a major price point difference on what's cost per acre on its nitrogen cost. It will show up at the farm gate. Okay, so we went from a high of somewhere well over $1,000, it looks like, and today urea is trading down here below $600. Huge volatility that must be controlled. The second part of that, though, what farmers, retailers have to be prepared for today is no one is willing to take this risk, right? We know from walking back at history, when we go straight up, we're this far out of bounds on price, you just can't be really long on your positions. There's lots of nitrogen that needs to be bought yet in the US today. Spring season is really only about 45 days away from need, okay? Logistically, how are we going to call these tons where we need to be? Big issue that we're following. So I just want to throw this up here. I want to try to quantify for you all today, what does the drop in fertilizer price really mean to the profitability of a farmer? Okay, these are some budgets that I work up all the time. I brought you a budget on the right, which was from probably back in the September timeframe, the August timeframe, and the budget on the left we just did here at the 1st of February. Okay. Don't look at the bottom numbers. We can go through all these. What I really want you to look at is about 4 or 5 lines down. P and K is phosphorus and potash fertilizer. Okay. You look, that cost per acre was about $131 back in September. Today, that's dropped down to $107. Okay. That's just removal rate P and K, something that would be within the H2 Ohio regulations. So it's a $20 drop. Nitrogen, I showed you this huge urea drop off over here. Okay. Nitrogen costs per acre were about $209 back in September. Today, they're $143. So you just look at those two items. You look at these few months that have went by, it's an $80 an acre difference, a reduction depending on when you bought your fertilizer. Fertilizers won't get a lot of noise, even though the price is coming down. Folks buy throughout the year to buy their needs. Folks who bought last fall, who bought early in the winter, are significantly higher priced than folks who are buying today. You can figure about an $80 reduction in cost just because of how the market move is happening. The rest of this budget, you just break it down there. My belief right now, it's going to cost a grower in Ohio somewhere around $150 to grow a corn crop this year. Or $5.22 an acre. He needs 188 bushel to break even. I listened to Barry Ward from Ohio State. He was talking some much higher land numbers than I am, so his budget looked quite a bit different last week when I was listening to Barry. But right now, I think it's going to cost a grower in Ohio about $1,050 to grow a corn crop. If you have questions about that, we can look at that back. We can look at that more in the end. So I got to do my my cursory H2 Ohio comments right here. Okay. H2 Ohio, you all up here obviously know what it is. It's trying to deal with less phosphorus going into Lake Erie. Okay. Some of this responsibility has come back on retailers. One thing we're very proud of at Sunrise, we are a 4R certified retailer. All of our facilities are, so we try to operate within the 4Rs, so the right time, the right place, the right product. Yesterday, I was with a location. We were out doing a farm call, and I said, "Hey, are we spreading fertilizer today?" This is looking pretty dry where we're at. And our location said, "No, we're not spreading fertilizer today." The biggest reason, we were within a 24-hour period of potentially having an inch of rain. So we were trying to be the right time. Okay, so we really take this 4R thing. I don't want to say we're perfect at it because I don't think we're anywhere near that, but we do implement it into our daily decisions. Okay, a big part of H2 Ohio is what's called a VNMP, a voluntary nutrient management plan. Okay, if you look at Ohio's data, they have about 131,631 acres that are fully enrolled and are active within H2 Ohio. Okay, or have a VNMP built for them for 22. Roughly 13.5% of those implemented acres, those VNMPs were actually built by Sunrise. Okay, so we have done a mountain of work building these nutrient management plans for farmers. If you've never seen one, you can take one home with you. I have some right here if you want to take one home. But these take a lot of work. Okay, now I will defend the state of Ohio as they do give the farmers money to have them built, and I will defend farmers that they have to pay us to do it. We don't do this for them for free. Okay, it was a very time-consuming process. So this is just an example one here. Not all the information is real, but just so you can see it. So for every field, you can see this was a 78-acre field. Every field we go through, we take what the soil test results were right here in the middle. I have a 48P, a 140K, and 11 CEC. And we actually build their recommendations. You'll see these recommendations started in 21. I had to put it on 2 slides. And it goes all the way through 2023. If you look over here on the right-hand side, which is kind of hard for us to see, we'll go down here at the bottom of 2023. You can see that they're going to use some UAN. It's going to be starter. It's going to be 12 gallons. Starter application. The next line, we're going to put their side dress UAN on. So it's going to be injected right here, right? It's going to be incorporated. The final thing is their potash in the fall of the year will be broadcast without incorporation. Every time there's a nutrient application plan for that field in these voluntary nutrient management plans, we have it spelled out for what they're supposed to do. These take an incredibly long amount of time to do when you're doing every single field that the grower has. Even if you're doing the same process on all of his fields, each field has to be put in separately. So Sunrise has built about 13.5% of the nutrient management plans that are active within the H2 Ohio right now. Another thing I put on here, it's in the packet that I can hand out to you if you're interested. If you choose to use Sunrise, then we come back and apply for you. This helps keep you in compliance with your nutrient management plan. We will give you a report. Hey, here's what we came out on spread on your field. In the middle here, this is what the temperature was like. Here's what the wind was like. All that information is captured, and we can give it to the farmer to be in compliance with the state of Ohio's H2 Ohio program. Okay, this is just one example of it here. And again, if you want to pack it on or are interested in it, we'll give it along. Any questions on H2 Ohio? I just hit on it lightly just because of where I'm at, and everyone always wants to ask, hey, is Sunrise doing anything from an H2 Ohio perspective? I don't think you want me to give my opinions on some of this stuff, I mean, on how it's really working. So everybody following it, but we are doing our best to help our patron customers be in compliance. The third thing that I want to talk about, and this is something I'm super passionate about, is Sunrise's, we call it FGP, Fertilizer Grain Program. If you're a producer with us today, if you're someone who works with producers, this is a big deal on how to help a grower control risk, helps us some too, helps Sunrise too, and ensure profitability. That's what we're all about. What we're really doing is many growers, we ask them how they buy fertilizer, and they would tell you it's no different than just throwing a dart at the board and hoping to hit the right spot. Okay, Sunrise shows up out there. Let's pick on Sunrise. Sunrise shows up out there today and says, boy, Mr. Farmer, it's time to buy fertilizer today because of this, this, and this. And this big spider web of these green dots I showed to start with are going on, and we think you need to buy today. That's the same thing people do when they show up to me and want me to buy 20,000 tons of something, and I got to consider how much risk is at hand, right? We're just basically throwing a dart against the dartboard. So I have personally built our fertilizer grain program, and basically it's a much more take the emotion out of it perspective, okay? And what I'm looking at is I actually view a farm just like I do a factory, okay? A factory, if we're making cars, we bring in steel, we bring in batteries, and we bring in tires, and we make a car, okay? A farm's no different. we bring in sunlight, and we bring in fertilizer, we bring in seed, and we produce grain. Okay, so look at it from a factory perspective. And what I'm looking at it as is how many bushels of output, corn, does it take to buy 1 ton of input fertilizer? Okay, and consider it as how many bushels do you have to sell to buy that 1 ton of input? And we can apply this to nitrogen, we can apply it to phosphorus, we can apply it to potash. I've done a little bit of work, even applying it to things like seed and energy. Okay, that's not my area of responsibility, so I haven't been as passionate about it. I don't have it figured out as well. But how many bushels of grain do you have to sell to buy 1 ton of the input? Okay. Today, I'll look at it relative to corn, because corn is the biggest and most important crop for Sunrise. We have the data relative to soybeans. We have the data relative to wheat. If you're someone who really wanted to sit down and have us all look at that with you, we can look at it relative to whatever crop you're growing on your farm. Very scientific, very non-emotional in how we're trying to do this. So this all was a result. If you think back to the urea chart I had in here a few minutes ago, you saw those 3 different points where fertilizer prices got really high in those different years. This all was a result of 2008. Okay, I tell this story all the time. I was in a brand new farm shop for Mike McCarron. Mike McCarron farms in Bell Center, Ohio. He's a friend of mine. He still farms today. His son is Luke. Luke is my age. Had this new shop, and like at all new shops, they got the furniture from the house that the wife doesn't like no more, that the farmer doesn't think is good enough to throw away, and you're sitting on this broke down junk couch that the dog sits on with you. Okay, I'm sitting there. This is August. I'm telling Mike, you have to buy your 28 today. It's $425. You know, the world's going to come to the end. Natural gas is $15. I remember the whole speech I gave him, and he says, Phil, I don't need to buy that. I said, oh, Mike, you have to buy it today, because people are telling me, you know, we're throwing the dart against the board. The world's going to come to an end. You have to buy your natural gas, or have to buy your nitrogen today. Natural gas is $16. You don't need it until next April, but you got to buy it today in August. So before I left, he agreed to buy his nitrogen for $425 a ton, which, you know, that was a spike up in the urea chart, but UAN was the same thing. It was way out in left field, and he bought it, and that was in August. And this was like 2008, right? Remember back to 2008, everybody carried an Nextel phone. It's like a walkie-talkie, you know, and they go beep, 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 you know, and you push the button. And Mike had a Nextel phone. He was always on it, and he wore bib overalls. Okay, and that Nextel phone just hung on his pocket out front here, just like dung around like a fishing lure or something. So January comes, and this time he came to Botkins. My office was in Botkins, Ohio at the time. He came to Botkins. Mike never comes to Botkins. You know, farmers, we do most of our work on the farm, and he comes to Botkins, and he sits at the chair, down on the chair across from my desk. And nitrogen prices had dropped like $200 a ton. And he says, Phil, I told you I've beaten on the desk. I told you I didn't have to buy that nitrogen. It's now $225 instead of $425. You didn't know what you were talking about. You're kind of right. So he gets all wound up. His Nextel's swinging around there, and he's all animated. And I'm sitting there across the desk from him, and I was like, Phil, something's got to change. Mike is like, right here, you're looking really foolish. What's your new way to sell fertilizer going to be? So that was sometime in 2008. So I started going back through all my archives and finding a bunch of price sheets. And I said, I'm going to go back to 2004, and it's just all the farther back I could find good data. And what I did is every Friday since 2004, so almost 20 years, we write down the retail price of fertilizer. So 20 years worth of data, 52 weeks a year. We write down the retail price of fertilizer. At the same time, from January through August, in that period of time, we assume if you're buying fertilizer, it's for the current year's crop. Okay, so right now we are February the 15th. If you're buying fertilizer today, we assume it's for the 22 crop. So we're comparing today's price of fertilizer to these 22 corn crops. If we get out to August 1st and you're buying it after August 1st, we assume, hey, you're buying it then, it's for the following year's corn crop, bean crop, and we compare it to DISA 23. And the only thing we're doing is we're trying to look for a ratio of how many bushels of corn do you have to invest to buy 1 ton of potash in this slide that's up here, okay? There's lots of data up here. It's too much for really doing a PowerPoint. This is a horrible PowerPoint slide. I really want you to just look at this red line down here in the lower right-hand corner. This red line tells us on average, you've had to invest 95.93 bushels of corn to buy 1 ton of potash. 95.93 bushels of corn to buy 1 ton of potash. It's been as high as 138 and as low as 76. My view is If we can help you buy your potash for less than 95 bushels per ton, we're really doing our job. If we can identify a time when it's 76 bushels per ton at the 5-year low, we're making you a lot of money. So if I'm on the farm and I'm having a discussion with you in one of our ASAs, I tell the grower, hey, we're out with an opportunity at the first of each month for you to buy your inputs a year out. Okay. When we're at the 5-year average, you need to give Sunrise 5 minutes of time to have a discussion. If we can identify a time to help you buy at the 5-year low, you need to have your checkbook ready, you need to have your pencil ready, and we just sign the contract. Okay. This is a program that's built for the customer who wants to be a Sunrise customer, right? You're going to want to do business with us. We know that. We're trying to help you identify a good opportunity. You'll notice on my chart in the lower right-hand corner here, fertilizer values have been way out of line for roughly the last year. Since December of 21, we've been way above. We're setting new highs. Fertilizer prices have been way out of line. That piece of information, Rebecca, is exactly why you asked me to come talk today, right? Because you knew there was a big issue with fertilizer values. Let me go forward and let me try to prove to you that this works. Again, too busy of a slide, but I made recommendations in July of 21 for our growers to actually buy their inputs for the 22 crop. Okay. I did not know that fertilizer prices were going to go to 900 bucks. But in May and June and July of 21, I asked them to buy their potash for about $420 a ton. Okay, it went up to $520 in July. You saw some charts where potash prices were over $900. Okay, but what I was really looking at here in the middle, the bottom third of the screen, was the historical ratio at that time was 82.37 bushel per ton. We were helping these growers invest at 86 or 84 or 109 bushels per ton, which was actually really close to the 5-year average. Okay. When you average all that together, we'll just use 93.39. You know, so we helped them invest at 93.39. The 5-year average was 82. We'd got them started early on there. The prices were starting to run away from us. So I just want to prove to you that it works. Again, too busy of a slide. Don't look at that. We have our growers in at 93.39 over here in the lower left-hand corner. The growers who chose not to follow us, if they would have bought their fertilizer in November or January or March, whatever, across the top there, you can see that. You can see what the December corn price was. These growers invested somewhere between 119 bushels of corn and 145 bushels of corn to buy their 1 ton of fertilizer. The growers who followed the Sunrise recommendation invested 93.39. Okay. What this really means is the growers who followed our recommendation had an extra 40 bushels, which they could market because they didn't have to invest it in potash. If you assume a 200 pound per acre application rate, those growers put $25 an acre in their pocket. Sure, I could be bragging about how well the recommendation went. What I'm really wanting to put into your minds is I showed you some budgets that were really impacted depending on where people bought their fertilizer. Okay. I'm also showing you when people follow some good science or some good non-emotional things, there's more dollars they can put in their pocket. The difference between a marginal producer today and a really good producer today, or a very profitable producer today and an unprofitable producer, is way more than any of us imagine. Okay. There could easily be $100 to $200 an acre difference in profitability right now, based upon how a grower is managing his numbers, not how he's growing his crop, just how he's managing his numbers, where he's buying his inputs at, where he's making his sales. Okay, I'm just bragging on myself. Somewhere around $25 what we help these growers put in their pocket. So I mentioned when I started, we're already looking at 24. Okay, we went through this period of really high inputs. Growers are getting a lot for their crop, which is cool. But we're already saying, you know what, the numbers are starting to make sense for 24. So we actually were out a couple of weeks ago and told growers that we wanted them to buy 25% of their potash needs for the 24 crop. At that time, we were selling it for $5.55 a ton. They could sell their corn for these 24 at $5.50 a bushel. Okay. In this, because this is really a program for the Sunrise customer. We do that on an HDA, so you set basis later, and we'll let you deliver that wherever you want to go. You want to go to the local ethanol plant, you want to come to a Sunrise facility, we don't care. We'll deliver it then. But we're making a 25% recommendation. The reason we're making that recommendation is because it's at 100.91 bushels of potash, or bushels of corn to buy 1 ton of potash. Okay, today our 5-year average is 99.41. We're helping you get in basically at the 5-year average. We think that's a place to start. Okay, if we can help you buy inputs at the 5-year average, get started, that's way better than where we've been in the last year, setting new highs at 138. We're leaving more bushels in your pocket to market later. We ask you to sell some corn at the same time, just so that we know you've protected the risk. About the same boat, we're doing some stuff on urea. You saw those urea charts that were all over the place. 104.55 bushels of corn to buy 1 ton of urea. Okay, we're recommending you do 25% of your needs. Urea, we're actually below the 5-year average. Okay, as we get closer to the 5-year low, which may or may not happen, we will increase our recommendation of how much you should buy. As we get closer into the summertime and closer to next year's crop, if we stay in this 104.55, we will increase our recommendation how much you should buy. There's no reason to throw the dart at the board one day. There's no reason for Phil to come out and sit in this new shop on this crummy couch with the dog beside him and say, you know what, today you need to pay $425 for fertilizer. We have to get some science to what we're doing. This really does it. It takes a lot of the emotion out. That's our better way. Fertilizer, grain, like I said, it goes back to just being the factor, right? What are our inputs versus what are our outputs? Okay, that's what we really have to keep in mind. So thanks for your time. I hit on those couple, 3 things. Give me what your questions might be today. Some of them come in, you let me know in the back. I often get questions about social media and everything like that. I'm not a social media junkie. So you're not going to follow me on Twitter. You're not going to follow me on TikTok. None of that stuff. I hang out on LinkedIn periodically, but you're not going to find me doing fertilizer updates and stuff like that, as some of my colleagues are doing. I'm not doing that. Okay, I'm not going to dance. Or I had a girl that worked for us, and she come in one day in a neck brace. I said, well, what happened? You know, so stuck my foot in my mouth. What happened? Oh, I was practicing a TikTok because I'm going to be in a wedding party, and I was practicing doing a flip or whatever, and I didn't do the flip right, and I landed on my head and broke my neck. You know, so I don't know what TikTok's about, but we don't find out of that. So, are there any questions from within the group? And if there's something you want me to talk about that I didn't spend any time on the green dots, that's fine. Or something else, I'll take it as well.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Based on the things, I don't think that we use 10%.
Yeah.
For the reason I never heard of potash, going on in Europe.
Yep.
We see that continuing to cause going forward. Or?
Yeah. So the question is, he'd never heard of potash, but it's obviously been in the news a lot based upon what's going on in the Ukraine. There's no doubt that this Russia-Ukraine issue is not over with, right? This is going to go on for a long time. I like to do a lot of homework and research. I would tell you, and I tell this whole group, if you don't follow a gentleman by the name of Peter Zeihan, Peterzehian, Zehian. He's kind of weird. He's kind of out there, but he really gets you thinking about why Russia's doing what it's doing. So I would encourage you to follow him, first of all. So to specifically answer the question, I see geopolitical issues being a huge problem going forward. Okay. I don't know that we know where the next one's going to come from. Right now, we obviously have some more trouble going on in the Ukraine with what's going on with the wheat price. That's something I watch tremendously. So I showed you some charts of declining nitrogen costs today. That's a huge problem for farmers and retailers both who don't want to get hung with the risk. I was talking to someone who I trust a lot. We were talking about my position, where I was at, and he's like, Phil, I know you like your position. You're doing well for your customers. You're in good shape. But back to making me think, he goes, what are you going to do if the spy balloon they send over next actually does something to screw up how well Donaldsonville produces nitrogen, and Donaldsonville goes down for 30 days? I shared with you, Donaldsonville, Louisiana is the largest nitrogen production plant in the US. If they were to go offline for 45 days right now, right ahead of spring season, it would create a disaster. Okay, there's no secret. Spy balloons, whatever you want to believe, conspiracy theorists, aliens, it's clear wars are being fought differently today. I'm very concerned what the implications that could have for fertilizer. Very good question. Yes. I don't know what to do about it, but yes, very good question.
If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat function.
How about you, Rebecca?
Anybody online, you can put your questions in the chat function. could just share a little bit about what you were telling the young people about this industry. And
Oh. Yeah. So I mentioned I've spoken with FFA kids. So we all know, and it doesn't really matter what business you're talking to right now. If I'm talking to you all here at this business, if I'm talking to a church or I'm talking to whoever you're hanging out, everybody's looking at a retirement numbers right now, saying you're going to lose about 1/3 of your workforce in the next 10 years to retirements. Okay. Sunrise specifically, we have 398 employees. Specifically, 119 of those will be eligible for retirement in the next 10 years. If you assume a retirement age of 65, 30% of our workforce will be eligible to retire in the next 10 years. We have a massive employee issue going on. Okay. So how Sunrise is approaching that, get online, follow us online on our website. We have a program called RISE, R-I-S-E, the RISE program. We give a truck to the state FFA program for the state FFA president to drive for the year of their presidency. Once they're done, we take that truck as a sign-on bonus, and we have a contest through FFA where we try to hire kids out of high school. The number one applicant gets that truck given to them. Our biggest problem is getting enough kids to apply. Okay. So what we were working on this week in Uniopolis, Ohio, they're working on it today in Starbuck Road, Ohio, at Wilmington, Ohio. We bring in high school seniors and juniors. We go to the FFAs, we invite them to come in. We bring them in, we feed them lunch. We get to 3 or 4 stations. We talk about what we do in agronomy, what we do in energy, what we do in grain. And we try to make them aware of the jobs that are out here. So this week, I would literally stand in front of a group of 40 kids. I had a gentleman who was a truck driver with us. I have a custom applicator. I have a billing clerk. I have an office manager, and I have our first RISE student who's been with us 3.5 years. I simply asked them, hey, what do you do at Sunrise? Explain what it means to be a custom applicator. Basically, we're just trying to get these kids to be interested. We need them to fill out the application. We're very open about it. The first place kid gets the pickup truck, we would take 20 high school seniors a year into our organization just to be training them and building our own. I was not really on board super well with this when it first came out 3 years ago. So I was quizzing the CEO. I was like, well, what's going on here? You sure that's a lot of money? You know, why are you giving away a truck? And he looked straight at me and he said, Phil, you and many others are doing a sorry job of helping me hire new employees. I got to try something different. So that's what we do. So great approach. So that's what we're doing. We would like to take 20 high school seniors every year if we could. We're basically trying to grow our own profit and employees.
We've got a couple online questions.
Yes, sir.
From Lori Dyer. How can MVP and Sunrise adapt?
Yeah. Lori, you can't ask me hard questions like that first thing in the morning. Lori and I are pretty good friends. And I don't know how we adapt, Lori, but as we've been coached at Sunrise, we've taken these kids. Yes, they've been in FFA. Very few of them have any farm experience. Okay. So literally, the first day these kids were on the job last year, the questions that they were getting were, well, do we get to take a lunch break? You know, what kind of shoes should we wear? What do you mean I have to work in the basement of the grain elevator first, right? So there's literally nothing. So what we're tasked with at Sunrise is we can't just have them come in and do the sorriest job we've got. We have to work with them, develop them into that thing. So what Sunrise is doing is these students that come to us, they're going to spend 3 months. They have a 2-year rotation. They spend 3 months in one area. They may be putting up propane tanks. They're going to spend 3 months dumping grain. They're going to spend 3 months helping us spray fields. They move around and get to see different things, but it's our responsibility to train them. So I don't work in the front line. I have very little interaction with them, but all of us have to do something to help these students, these coworkers feel comfortable. So simply what I've done, I would have a hallway reputation of being very unapproachable, being very busy. If you are within the RISE program and you're in a facility that I'm in, or I see you on a regular basis, I just make sure I go spend one lunch with them. So I'll go buy their lunch for a day and let them ask me any question I can. It's not some big magic thing that someone does, but I try to take that hour and a half to work with them. Hey, what questions you have about career? Where do you want to go? What can I help you get done? I think we all have a responsibility, Lori, to help train them to get to the next spot. You know, it's just not something we can send them to a classroom as we're in today, and they're going to be magically prepared. Another question?
From anonymous. What do you suggest retailers do that upside down?
So obviously Anonymous is one of my retail competitors, which is cool. I'm going to tell you what Sunrise's approach to owning positions that are no good. Okay. And a no good position is something that you bought for $500, or let's just use ammonia. You bought your ammonia for well over $1,000 and it's not even worth $1,000 today. This is the Sunrise approach, and the Sunrise approach is mostly run by Phil. I do not believe any one retailer or any one person or any one thing is bigger than the market. You know, if your Tesla car today is worth $20,000 less because Elon Musk cut the price of the Tesla car, I would tell you, get your price cut to where the market is today and just go out and sell it and get rid of the crummy position. If there's one thing that's helped me more than anything else in my career is when I own a sorry position. And if you're a trader or if you're going to manage a business like I do, you're going to have sorry positions. Just cut your price and get rid of it. Just forget about it and make your first loss your best loss and get rid of it. If you want to watch, I like YouTube to learn. There's a YouTube with the handle of Car Questions Answered, I believe right now. This guy is a used car dealer, and he basically is, he goes to used car auctions and tells you what they're going to sell for, and if that's too high or that's too low. A trend he's seen lately is a lot of electric vehicles are showing up at car dealer auctions. And his argument is Tesla dropping the price is going to lower the entire EV cost market. So dealers are sending their electric vehicles to auction, trying to get them off their dealer lots as fast as they can. You got to do the same thing with ammonia or potash. If you own ammonia or potash at too high of a price, get your price down and get it sold. Yeah, go ahead.
One more from Lori.
Yeah.
How can we help with?
How do we help recruit non-farm youth? We have no clue how to do that right. I'll give you another example of something that I'm going to be involved in a week that's recruiting non-farm youth. So we've had some teachers in, I think it may be like Shawnee School District, which is south of Springfield, Ohio. A year ago, a couple of their science teachers or math teachers, they must have some kind of a relationship to Sunrise. I don't know if it's a family member or what. They said, hey, we want to have a math day. You want to have a math day? We don't have math teachers at Sunrise. What do you mean you want to have a math day? And so what they did is they brought in, I believe it is 7th and 8th grade students from middle school, brought them into our facility in South Charleston, Ohio for math day. And what they challenged us with is they said, hey, you know, these students don't think they really need to learn math. They don't understand that it's really used in the real world. Phil, will you come in and we're going to have 3 or 4 sessions. Show us how you use math in your everyday job and why it's so important. So we'll go through examples of how do you figure out how many pounds of fertilizer you're going to put on per acre, then how many total pounds does that mean needs to be on that semi. So we just have to meet the kids where they're at. You know, of course, we can do math with them. We're not ashamed anymore that we're going to recruit too. You know, I mean, we told the kids at FFA Day, the reason you're here is we want to hire you. You know, I mean, we'll give you lunch and we want you to see what we're up to, and we're proud of our facility, but we want some of you to work for us. And through Math Day, it's just a different way for us to expose them to agriculture, to show them how they use some of the stuff they're learning every day. And I don't know that we hired any kids through Math Day yet, but we have to think a lot differently. We have to be a lot more open to ideas than maybe what we would have been 2 or 3 years ago. Ethan, the student who was with me for FFA Day 2 days ago, one of the questions I asked Ethan, I said, Ethan, you started with us 3 years ago now. I said, what did you know about Sunrise the day you started? He goes, I didn't even know Sunrise was a thing. Okay, so he's worked in 3 or 4 different departments a couple of times now. He goes, I didn't even know it was a thing. He goes, I'm tickled to death I found it. He goes, it took someone coming to my family, it was a Sunrise person, saying, hey, you should try this. He goes, well, I didn't even know Sunrise was a thing. So you're onto something there, Lori. It's going to be education on a organization by organization basis, I think.
Lori wanted to say thanks, Phil. You are the worst.
Such kind words, Lori. Thank you. In the back of the room.
I think coming to this is interesting, but with the volatility of the whole market and being able to sustain or not sustain our own supplies of things. Yep. Is Sunrise doing anything in like the vein of organics or anything like that? Yeah.
So the question, just to make sure everybody online can hear it, is does Sunrise and are we involved in the organic market whatsoever? Today, Sunrise would offer a very limited number of products that would be qualified for organic. Okay, there are businesses around us that do a much better job of that than we do. We have many customers who've asked us to source organic products, but one of the biggest problems for Sunrise and handling organic products, if we so much as to bring a semi-load of an OMRI approved fertilizer into one of our big facilities, because our facility has got traditional fertilizer or traditional products in it, and it is not an OMRI approved facility, we ruin that product the second we unload it. So just for how we're set up, if you come and tour a Sunrise facility, we're set up for fast and lots of it in a hurry. Nothing wrong with an organic thing. We just, that's not a business model that we're able to help with very much. So we would be a very poor source for that.
We're at the moment, we've got one more question if you want to respect everybody's time. Another anonymous question. Where does a retailer go at this point versus 2024?
Another good question. So the question was, where does a retailer go to buy 2024 inputs? And I'm going to go ahead and say, let's add, where does a farmer go to do that as well? We'll take all that as once. That's very hard to do. So option one that a retailer could look at is the retailer would have enough space, meaning storage space to hold fertilizer, liquid or dry or whatever, that they would simply buy the position today and they would put it in their building and they would hold it. That would be number one. The number two option, go to a preferred vendor, go to someone who you have a great relationship with that you can work with and say, hey, how can you help me buy an input that I don't have to take till August or September? Sunrise does quite a bit of that with folks. The third thing you have to do is you just have to have a good conversation with your existing supplier. Okay. I mean, I think a lot of farmers want to deal with where they're at today. Just have an open conversation. Here's what I'm looking at. Here's how I want to deal with it. What can you do for me? And there's a lot of places that can figure something out. You know, Sunrise has an advantage of lots of space. Another tool that you can use, I'm going to get way in the weeds for so much on here. You can use some futures positions. So we will use futures positions where we actually buy August paper hedge or a Q1 next year paper hedge. That's very illiquid. It's hard to do. It doesn't work for farmers because it has to be in 1,500 ton increments. It doesn't work for a lot of retailers. It's got to be in 1,500 ton increments, but there are a few futures tools that you can use as well. So I think we're wrapping up with that question there. If there's something you want out of the presentation, Todd can share it with you. There's no secrets in there. And if you have other questions, just hit me up with an email and I'll take care of it.
Thank you so much, Phil. No problem. Appreciate it. All right, everyone. Make sure I'm muted. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us for our first Ag Business Forum of 2023. There will be some information going out today for next month, where we'll be joined by Dr. Jim Sesla and Dr. Shannon Orr, and they'll be talking about food security issues and the Falcon Food Pantry. And there will be more information coming today. And as Phil said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And this recording will be sent out later this afternoon. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a wonderful day.